All right, this is curly dock. And if you turn the cows out here, some cows won't eat this, but because of how tightly we have them packaged in, there's a little more competition. So they're gonna eat it. And actually they tend to start eating this first once they've learned that they like it. And what they do first is they take all these green leaves off and they'll strip it down to nothing but the stem. They're standing in the way right now, but right on the other side of them, you wanna come with me? So they come in first and they eat all the leaves because that's the most tasty, high energy, right? And if you were selective grazing them, we're trying to do unselective grazing, where we're trying to have them consume everything. This is springtime, and if you were selectively grazing them right now, they would take all the leaves and leave all the stems. All those leaves are super high in protein, very low in fiber, especially this time of year. And you're gonna see them with some scours. And we're actually seeing it a little bit right now. Like that manure pat right there is a little too on the runny side.
What is scours?
Scour is like diarrhea. So anytime you see that, similar to humans, when you get diarrhea, you don't feel good, right? A lot of people don't worry about it because the animals will still perform. You can still go about your day when you got something like that going on, but you don't feel good. And they're not performing as well. And actually what's going on is the microbes in their gut, they don't have the right amount of microbes to handle that much protein. So they are getting it out of their system faster instead of actually absorbing it and doing what they need to with it. So it's not as efficient. So when you leave them, when you kind of demand more of them, what they'll do is we'll come back tomorrow morning in this curly dock. They've gotten all of the leafy stuff out of this paddock. They're gonna come back and this curly dock is gonna look like that. They're gonna eat this whole stem down. And this stem is where they're gonna get their fiber. And that fiber is gonna balance out all that protein. And we're gonna see manure pads that look more like this. It's more ringed up rather than this gal was just kind of, she's just kind of leaking it. This animal's getting a little more fiber. This animal's not getting enough. We're not gonna pick and choose which animal is biting what. We're trying to manage them as a herd. So our management, it's a tough time of year. You're trying to incorporate as much fiber as you can, and it's just tough to do, but we're trying. Most of our herd, with exception of 2, are first-time heifers right now. So we've been a little bit on edge watching them this spring because they should all be calving right now. We've got 3 calves on the ground out of 3 heifers. So far, all 3 went very, very well. But what we're looking for is to kind of see, okay, who's next. And what you'll see is then their udders will start to get really large and what they call bagging up, right? And their vulvas, their back ends, will get kind of floppy, right? We're almost just like you could just, the calf's got to be right behind, right in there, you know? And so I'm just walking around looking. This one actually had her calf, so you can see how her bag is bigger compared to her. She's not ready yet. There's not much of a bag there. You can hardly even tell she's got an udder unless you look right at it. But somewhere in here, we'll find one. See how compare these two. See how her nipples are way bigger than that one? This one's never had a calf. She still doesn't have one, but she is gonna calve sooner than her. She's starting to bag up. Bred here, it was gestated here, it was born here. It's gonna have, ideally, the genetics and epigenetics that are set up to thrive on this farm, this environment. So we're at a standpoint where we're trying to convert. If you can look at here, there's right at 40 acres of wheat that is going to be in permanent pasture as soon as possible. We've got another 20 to 25-ish acres of pasture that we're trying to get established. We're standing in some of the best of it right now. So don't think that we are that rich in the green around here, because we're really not. But we're gonna have a lot of pasture and we're gonna need a lot of animals, and we really wanna have those animals in a cow-calf situation that have been developed on this farm, because they're gonna thrive the most. It's a struggle when you're trying to do a low input operation and bringing in new genetics and asking them to thrive. So I don't know that we have the luxury right now to be that harsh and picky and cull that heavily. And also, they're just so pretty. Look at those white faces. Look at 402 there. 402. She's the one that we looked at, and she's starting to bag up a little bit. She's just got that really chestnut red. I know red shouldn't matter, but what she does have, she's got a pretty big gut, which is a good thing. She's got a little bit thick bone structure in her legs. Well, guys in this program, what they like to see a little bit finer bone. Like if you look at that little Aberdeen right there, little beefcake. She's all belly. Yep, 207. She's all belly, hardly any legs, and the legs that she's got are pretty thin boned. They're pretty fine boned. If only she was about 300 pounds bigger. And she will be, and she is, an extremely efficient animal. For her pounds, she's going to raise her and her, it's either her mom or her sister there, 902. Pound for pound, they will outproduce anything on this farm. But they limit us in our marketing, because if we ever want to take something to a commercial sale or go that route, like a sale barn, they're going to get docked heavily because of their frame size. They're just too small. They're 800-ish pounds, and guys are wanting twice that. But if we can market them as our own genetics or as beef, then they're fantastic. You just got to develop that market. This one here is the one that is supposed to be open. So if that's the case, she's going to be our next beef animal to feed our family. And what you should start seeing, you kind of see a little bit of a wrinkle right there. When she's finished out, you'll start seeing those wrinkles right on top of her tail head. They call it that fat on the tail head, and that's when you know that their body fat is adequate enough. And she's 24 months old right now, so by the time July comes around, she'll be 26, 27 months old. And it's a pretty ideal timeline for grass-finished beef. So if she's open, she's gonna be tasty. She got a pretty little head on her.
She's so cute. She's wrinkling her nose like a little rabbit nose.
Look how much nicer that one looks comparatively, right? Yeah. She's not as hairy. She's slicking off. She's filled out better. And that's out of one of these Aberdeens. Very sad about 507. I don't think she's gonna. I think she's destined for the freezer and not to be a mama. Those dirty hind ends. That's what you don't necessarily want to see as much. It means we got a little too much protein going on. Not enough. A lack of fiber. But they're getting it. Look, they're eating the pennycress. Yep. Yeah, believe it or not, it can be eaten.
Yeah, the seeds are still green, but when it starts to turn yellow and the seeds.
So when the plant turns yellow,
we got
so
some
yeah, let's look at this right here.
Just a few studies said could cause abortion.
Let's compare it side by side.
If they don't have enough diversity in their diet, could cause abortions, is what we looked up.
They've been eating this. They've been eating it even when it didn't have a seed on it. They've not been happy about it, but we've got some areas up top that are the worst spots. The worst spots on our farm, and right now this is all that'll grow. And we wanted to give these good grasses some time to get established, give it a lot of energy pumped down into their roots before we started hitting them hard on grazing. So we hit those lesser areas. Anyway, we'll talk about this. So this is pennycress, and they've been grazing it even before it put on a seed, and they've been eating it up to this stage where it's still green, but now it has a seed. And like Taylor's talking about, you open one of these up, the seeds inside these little pods are still green. And we were concerned about this plant at first because this was we were supplementing them with hay, but outside of hay, this is about all they had to eat up there. And you don't really like to force an animal to eat one thing, especially if they can overdose on it, if it's toxic. So we looked up if it was toxic, and it turns out it can be. But what Taylor found was it's only toxic when it gets to more of this yellow stage, and you can almost kind of see through and see that those seeds are darker in this yellow stage, they're more mature. So we break this open. They're not quite black yet, but they're like a burgundy, and it'll get more and more
get darker for sure.
It'll get more and more dark and more mature. And so if we hadn't have grazed that up there when we did, if we'd have come here first, we would have grazed these good grasses. This is one of the best spots on our farm. We would have grazed these at an unideal time for them because they're perennials and they really need to take all that first cycle, that first growth cycle, and pump it down into their roots, right? Get that energy down in the roots. The more they can get their roots established in the spring, the better they're gonna grow for us the rest of the year, right? It's starting that battery up. So if we would have grazed them too early, they would have been too high in fiber, would not have gotten a chance to get their roots established like we just talked about. Then we would have let this plant up top get mature like this. So by the time we do get around to grazing it, it's gonna be toxic to the animals. So management, we were able to get the best out of both worlds in that decision. It always worked that way. Sometimes you don't get the best of both worlds, but in this case, it worked out for us. For us, it's a good plant to learn about. The group that I'm involved with, that I learned about this grazing program from, I asked them about it. Not a single one had ever even heard of it. Send a picture, nobody's heard of it. But if you look out on this field in another few days, it's going to look like yellow. Yeah. It's going to look like a field of that. I mean, it's just all over, especially, again, up top where it lays super, super flat and wet. This likes moisture, apparently.
Looks great in a cut flower arrangement.
It does.
Lots of florists like it.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes. It smells very peppery. Some people say garlicky smell. It's very
Do I gotta have
got
the
a
seed
bitter.
Open to smell that?
No, I can smell it right now, but
when we were driving, the leaves have it more.
When we were driving through it, you could smell it we got the grass down here helps. But you can kind of smell it when you're driving through. It's very bitter.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Peppery smell.
It's like a peppery spinach. It's like if you put pepper on spinach. I got nowhere I gotta be. Taylor asked me, we're shooting our umpteenth little video here that she's gonna edit. She said, where are we at on time? We're supposed to go on a date tonight. We don't have the kids. So she said, where are we at on time? I'm like, I got nowhere I gotta be. Fields are wet right now, so I get to play cowboy. We took a class this year on a program called Total Grazing. And a lot of people have heard of rotational grazing, right? And it's along those lines, but it kind of takes it to the umpteenth level, where in rotational grazing, you've heard of some guys will talk about, if you've got a plant, you'll eat a third, trample a third, and then leave a third. And the idea is that you leave something behind to collect the sunlight and photosynthesize. And I'm gonna get I really just asked her to make the video so I could talk about that PVC pipe, and now I'm getting like super deep and talking about too much, but now I've started talking about the plant, so I'm gonna finish my talking about the plant. The problem with this is when they only take a third and they leave 2/3, or take a half and leave a half, they take the best half, and what they leave is the stem. And the thing that does the most photosynthesizing is the leaf, right? And what the problem with, if you take the leaf and leave the stem, the plant will actually leach energy from its roots via respiration out of the stem. So you'll deplete the roots of your plant faster than if you would have taken the whole stem. And like we've talked about it in a different video, whether or not you'll be seeing it here or not, I don't know. But that stem is good for the cow too. She doesn't like it, but it's kind of like getting your kids to eat their vegetables, right? That stem is the fiber that helps balance out all that protein. There's always a balance between energy, fiber, and protein. And as the management, you're always balancing those things, right? Okay, so the idea is, don't take a half, take up to 90% or as much as you possibly can, and then let it rest and let it fully come back. And that regrowth that you get is even better than the first time, because it typically on the regrowth, it's almost all leaf. the leaf to stem ratio is even greater the second time around. So it just keeps getting better and better. And then those roots, all of those roots that you didn't deplete by leaving the stem, they all go into that regrowth of the leaf. And what ends up happening is your stocking rate on your farm, the amount of animals that your farm can carry, just goes up dramatically. Some of the drawbacks are when you go down that much, you expose a lot of bare soil. And if you get a drought and heavy hot weather, you know, you can, a lot of the selective grazing guys will say, well, you're not gonna cover your soil enough. And I think it's a valid point that you do have to manage around and you have to consider, but this has been shown to work in so many places around the world that it's worth doing. So the way they do it with their infrastructure is they set up an alleyway, and their cattle are able to mobilize anywhere on their farm via an alleyway. And I think it's called like a Hungarian gate or Bulgarian gate. Some country, some folk come up with this gate idea where you got your alleyway, and we're using a poly braid. Fence is off. We're using poly braid because that's what we have, and we're just learning about this system right now, and we're trying to implement it. But most of these alleyways will be set up with high tensile wire, and what they'll do is they'll drive a post in the ground or use one of their posts that they already got. Again, we just got these little bitty fiberglass posts, but what I did is I took a slightly larger fiberglass post and I drove it in the ground. This is a thicker this is a thicker post, and it's taller, so that's down in the ground about a foot. Actually, it's pretty stout, right? Then I took a PVC post, and this is just like the Total Grazing, cut a little notch in it, right? Slide it over, make your Hungarian.
Ow.
Sorry, I hit the camera with the wire. Put that on there, and now the cattle can come in and out. And you've got the ability, you know, some guys are doing this across thousands of acres, right? We've got hopefully soon to be about 160, but really we're working on about 25 right now. 25 acres, and I can put this little herd of basically 17 animal units, right? I can put this 17 animal units, which is 1,000 pounds. I can put that ideally with good stockmanship anywhere on this farm that I desire, based on the management, based on how the plants are doing and how the animal's doing and all the things that come into managing a herd like this. And that's what this little PVC pipe and this alleyway that it's hard to see, but if you step back and you see the alleyway, and that right now, the alleyway kind of makes a big U around our 25 acres here, and we can
the water up there.
Yeah, and the water, that's the other thing nice about this too. It's going to be a challenge for us is watering point. A lot of the guys that do a little bit more selective grazing, they're not using this alleyway, which it is a sacrifice area. There's no doubt about it. Like, you're going to get less. This is ground that is going to get abused and not going to get grazed very well. And what they do is they like to have water infrastructure around their whole farm, so they have underground piping that goes everywhere. And you don't necessarily need that with this because you've got the alleyway. They can always get back to water. You don't have to bring the water to the cows. Cows can walk for a living, and they can walk back to the water. For us, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge because we've got this soil that they call black stick, and it's super heavy clay, and this is everywhere. And what happens is it gets wet, and they walk in it, and it gets puggy, and it looks like that. And right now, we've got 8 acres that look like that, and it's just super heavy clay, and it becomes a mud mess. So if you're asking these cows, if we're all the way on that end, and you're asking them to travel this line because we're going to leave the water up there, right? And you're asking them to travel this and travel this and travel this and travel this. By the time the grazing season is done, everything on this alleyway that you see is green is going to look like that. And they're going to be expending so much energy to tromp through this heavy clay, and it's not going to be very profitable. So,
and when it dries, it gets hard.
And when it dries, it gets hard. And we have seen animals in our few years of grazing. We see animals with limps every year after they come off of an area. They got pugged up when it's wet and then dried. Because you know what they make pottery out of and hard stuff?
Clay.
Right here, clay. Yeah, this stuff gets hard. So it's no bueno for sure. So I do think we're going to take a little bit of both worlds here. And in our future, we're gonna see them use the gate. But I think what's gonna work for us, because every farm, every rancher, every person has to think and manage their own farm. What's gonna work for us is actually running a water line down the alleyway, so that way we can isolate them to an area and allow the rest of the alleyway to rest and not completely abuse it. You really gotta watch the rumen field. You gotta watch this on the left side of the animal, making sure, Greg Udy calls it the triangle of death. She's not gonna let me get up and touch her, but right here on the hip, the backbone and the ribs, that's on their left side. That's where you can see how an animal is eating, right? And if it's sunken in, which none of these are, they just got off of a wonderful paddock. These guys are all in great shape, but that can be sunken in. And what's gonna happen is if you compete too much and your management isn't right, your lesser animals, either lesser genetically developed or just more docile, more passive, they're not gonna get full, and they're gonna start falling back. And unfortunately, in the total grazing world, this is why Jim Elizondo's motto is fat cows, fat cows, fat cows, because he doesn't care for how so many people have taken his program and have tried to starve a profit into the cattle. It's not about starving them, it's about managing them properly.